poverty and the kind of, both in Tupelo and then Memphis, like the influences and the time he spent in the black community, going to clubs, going to churches, and getting country music and gospel music. I think that part of it was the best part. It was so focused on a very small, specific local area, and it was personal. It was much more memoirish feeling that, again, is information that we didn't really know a lot of. We knew maybe generally. So I think that part was really helpful. And the documentary overall is a really great introduction to Elvis. I think it's a great starting point for a lot of people if you know nothing about Elvis, but then want to get a better sense of who he was, both as a person, where he came from, and kind of what he was about. I think it's really good. But I think it is, I don't think the goal of this documentary is to show necessarily like his import to the entertainment industry and how he revolutionized it in that way, but it's much more about, I mean, it's in the title, right? It's called The Searcher. It's about Elvis in his journey to reconcile both his past and what people put upon him, what the media said about him, and his own personal reconciliation with the death of his mother and his relationships as they evolved over time due to this fame and this success. So it's not like it was necessarily deceiving us in terms of what it was about, but I think it's a very particular type of documentary that is not trying to give the whole story of Elvis, but kind of focus on just the local, what it was like being in that kind of inner circle in a sense.
Yeah, and I think it's 100% worth watching. I'm really glad that we watched it. And I would say the biggest thing I took away from it, as you were saying, is a more holistic view of Elvis's character and upbringing. And then I'm really, at that point, I'm just kind of projecting goals on him. Like, I don't actually know. But it seems, based off what everyone said and his upbringing, that there was a point in his life where he shifted from just loving music and only wanting to play music, and that's all he cared about, to really wanting to provide a better life for his family and his mother, and provide a life that they could never have when they were growing up poor. I think that was really cool to be able to understand that side of him more. And it also reflects back on the films that we've watched, in that so many of those stories have the same kind of narrative going on.
I will say it makes a little bit more sense in the context of that. I always assumed, yes, that he's a musician first, but he was interested in movies and maybe he wanted to be a good actor, but that, we unfairly had him ripped away from this time he would have rather spent in the studio. But I think that kind of what this did illuminate for me was his motivation so much was not necessarily money for the sake of wealth, but money for the sake of taking away the worry for his family financially ever again. So I think that it started out being focused in music, not only because that's what he was around, but because it was the only thing he had creative access to. He wasn't trying to be an actor when he was a kid because there was no avenue for him to become an actor.
Yeah.
Not that Colonel Parker doesn't seem to have pushed him into whatever made the most money anyways, but I think he accepted that move because it just ensured again for him that his family wouldn't have to worry about things, irregardless of what the medium was. He wasn't like the art is the final purest art form. He's more concerned, I think, just about providing in a general sense.
Yeah, I think too you can see that split between him maybe viewing acting as a higher form of art than music. He kind of talked about in the documentary at one point, they said, if you go back home and rock and roll just doesn't exist, what are you going to do? And the first thing he says is that he'd probably focus more on acting. And maybe it was just that shift from I need to be bigger than just this music I'm making. I need to provide more. Whereas, like we were saying, when he was a kid, he literally, all he cared about was getting into clubs and seeing these R&B artists and these blues artists play and just absorbing it. And it was just his passions, all he cared about. And then when the world kind of grew and unfolded before him and there were more opportunities, then it became about something bigger, money, probably mixed up with acting as well. One thing I really enjoyed about the documentary was how much it showed that race for Elvis, because he was growing up poor and because the blues gave this opportunity for new and interesting music to him, race wasn't even really, he just didn't seem to care. He just wanted to be around amazing musicians and would respect different musical styles regardless of if they were white or black. And I thought that was cool based off the movies we've seen and how he always tries to include musicians of color, or his characters hang out with people of color as opposed to the rest of the characters not a lot of the time. It kind of is the same way when people ask, like, oh, like, you dancing on stage, you feel bad about, doing all these bad things on stage? And he's like, no, I don't even think about it because I don't think it's bad. I feel like the impression I got with race and Elvis is the same kind of thing for him. He doesn't even think about it. It's just whatever.
One of the best parts in that doc is when they're just directly comparing, like, look, he's just dancing the way he saw in churches or that he saw in clubs. Like, everyone was dancing that way. The difference was
like
that
the gospel singers.
Yeah, the only difference was that no one was doing it on a national stage.
Yep.
And so I think, I would say, if anything else, this documentary kind of did cement in my mind the idea, like, okay, I think Elvis is definitely not a cultural appropriator because, again, he's just displaying the local influences and the communities that he spent time in.
Every artist that exists is a form of pastiche artist that takes the things they like, makes them into something kind of new, but really copying other people, and then eventually it evolves into their own thing. And that's what Elvis did. He took from blues in the black community, but he also took from bluegrass and other artists that he grew up around, and then eventually morphed them into his own thing. So, I mean, I think it's a ridiculous expectation to say that every artist has to point out, all the different things they were influenced by. At least generally, he seems to always point to, oh man, I love these artists of color. I love these blues artists. And to me, that's totally fair.
The other thing, too, is that it was just so funny to go back and look in this doc where they're talking about how sonically Elvis is so specific and he's uncompromising in that sound. He's not changing his sound for anyone else, but then we get to the movies, which are literally nothing but artistic compromise, right, for the sake of success, which is so unfortunate, again, because he wanted to do things. He wanted to be challenged outside of, after the first movie, him saying that he couldn't die in movies anymore because his mom would be too upset. Outside of that, it is just frustrating to see. I think Elvis had the capacity to really try something with some more depth. And we've seen glimpses of it in certain movies. But I do wish that, I don't know, I wish he would have gotten to do The Rainmaker. I wish he would have gotten to do some of these, like there was an Elia Kazan movie that he was going to do at one point. I can't remember which one it was. I feel like there's so much that we lost, especially at this time we're now in the movies, right? We're turning into what is apparently just the schlockiest of the schlock.
We should definitely look into what happened with The Rainmaker at some point and talk about it, because I really wonder, was he going to be in this real serious picture? Because in the doc, he says, I'm not going to sing. I'm going to be in this movie, The Rainmaker. It's going to be really focused on acting. It's going to be a real movie. And then he doesn't get it. And then it's like, okay, well, guess he's got to sing in movies. And so I wonder if, I don't know, he questioned his acting ability, or like,
I forgot her name, but she didn't get the talk. They cut her off, and then two old white guys that did the Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, they both get to speak. Both of them. It looked pretty fucking bad on my end. And I was sitting with my friends, and they were saying the same thing. It's like, this is really bad. Like, this looks really fucking bad. That they are playing off people. And look, they played off these the people, and they just happened to be. It just looks bad that the people that played off just happened to be women, and not just women, women of color. And it was honestly, oh my boy, it looks bad. Tangent, but that was just a funny thing I noticed throughout the night, and it just wasn't a great look for the Academy. And then, like I said, we went to animated short. We had these two guys speak. I thought Ice Merchants might take it, or My Year Dicks actually looks pretty good. I haven't seen it, but I have seen Ice Merchants, and thought it was really good, and I thought it would take it, but no, it went to The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horsey. This one was bewildering. Production design went to All Quiet on the Western Front, and what? Excuse me? What? Like, I just don't think the production design was so dense in that movie. It was certainly not as dense as like Babylon or Elvis. Fuck, even the Fablemans. I mean, actually, the Fablemans probably like a bit kind of more subtle, but not much going on there. But Babylon and Elvis, like beating those, come on, man, come on. Sometimes it happens that just a war film will just sweep a few awards, especially the technical awards. and that's what happened here again. We had another war film, sweeping technical, and man, I thought it was going to go to Babylon for sure, but it didn't. It didn't go to Babylon. But we'll talk about the biggest deal is coming up soon. Coming up next, I think, because original score. I can't believe this. Original score went to Volker Bertelmann for All Quiet on the Western Front. That score is. It's kind of, I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me, man. It just doesn't do anything. Carter Burwell's score for Banshees of Inisherin does more than Volker Bertelmann's score for All Quiet on the Western Front. And then every time All Quiet on the Western Front, every time All Quiet on the Western Front won, you always had to hear that womp, womp, womp. Like, wouldn't you rather hear, like, Coke Room or Voodoo Mama from the fucking Babylon score? Like, I cannot believe Hurwitz lost this to Bertelmann. I cannot believe it. It really surprised me. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God. Probably one of the most boring scores after John Williams. Probably the most boring score there. And it fucking beat Justin Hurwitz's score for Babylon. It beat Sun Lux's score for Everything Everywhere All at Once. That was another war that I was just like, I was rolling my eyes, shaking my head at that one. I could not believe it. Visual effects, of course, went to Avatar: The Way of Water. There was nothing beating that one. Of course, it went to that one, and it should have went to that one. Original screenplay went to Everything Everywhere All at Once. And we watched this again actually after the Oscars, after it won Best Picture. We ended up watching this again, and yeah, it really solidified that it is a really good screenplay, and there's just a lot into it, and it's packed in so well, and they made a good film. You can't have a great film without a great screenplay, and that's what they did. The Daniels deserve that. I still would have either saw maybe Ruben or Martin McDonough for Triangle of Sadness or Banshees of Inisherin. Seeing it go to them. But I'm not mad about that at all. That is really cool to see. And their speeches were great. I loved how Shine It. I think it was when they went directors.